Okay, so today let's talk a little bit about macro photography and what you need for macro photography. Macro photography is a blast. I mean, it's probably the most frustrating type of photography, but it is kind of enlightening and enjoyable when you see stuff up close and realize just how fantastic things look when you get down to their level. But in most cases, I would say in photography, it's basically your artistic ability that creates the really nice image. And while that does play into macro photography, you definitely are going to need the right type of equipment for macro photography. So let's look at some of the stuff you need. Okay, so macro photography, a lot of times you can buy lenses and they will give a setting on here that says macro. And a true macro lens will reproduce a one-to-one image. In other words, like if you're photographing a 1-inch bug, it will appear 1 inch on the sensor, and that's a true macro lens. So while this does get close, it doesn't quite do the job for you. Now, some of the things that you can buy for any lens to make it focus closer are what's called extension tubes. And things like this, these will match up with your lens. They just are clear, there's nothing in them. And that allows the camera lens to be extended away from the body of the camera. And this is going to allow this to focus closer. Now the disadvantage is after you get 2 or 3 of these on there, you're going to be too close to focus this lens. This is going to create too close of an environment so that whatever you're focusing on is going to have to almost touch the front of the lens. So in order to do macro photography right, you really have to purchase a macro lens. So let's look at what those are. Okay, macro lenses come in different sizes. Here I have a 100mm macro and a 180. And Canon also makes a 50mm macro. The 50mm actually will require an extension ring to allow it to produce a one-to-one image on the sensor, whereas these two do not. They will produce a one-to-one image on the sensor. Canon also makes a specialized macro lens, the 65 here. This actually produces 5-to-1 when it's fully extended. So whatever you're photographing will be 5 times life size on the sensor. Now, macro lenses can also be used as regular lenses. The only thing that makes them different is the fact that they can focus very close and they can produce a one-to-one image. The other thing that you may want to get is an angle finder, because in macro photography you end up close to the ground a lot of times, and if you don't want to be laying down all the time trying to look through the viewfinder, this is a perfect accessory, which you can put on the back of the camera like this, stand above it, and it makes it much easier when you're close to the ground. Now, a lot of times when you have your camera stuff, you can't always use a tripod. But when you can, a small one like this is a pretty good one to use because it gets nice and low to the ground. The legs come all the way out and it gets you down low. This is a relatively inexpensive one. It's a nice one for that. The bad thing is that it does have this long tube right here, and I think this particular one comes with a shorter tube that you can put in here, so that allows the legs to go all the way out and to get really low to the ground. When you do use a tripod, one of the things that can help you on focus is this slider here, and your camera attaches on here and it allows you to make micro movements back and forth for focusing. Now this works really well if what you're photographing is not moving. If something is moving, it's kind of difficult to put your camera on the tripod and also on this. But if it's pretty much in one spot, these things are fantastic to use, both the tripod and this, and it will improve your photography, your macro photography.